Morning. Yes, we can start. Yeah.
Am I audible? Hello. Am I audible now? Okay. Good, warm welcome and good morning to everybody. Warm welcome. My respected today's president of this meeting, honorable faculty members of various discipline of Assam Downtown University, faculty members of my own department, Humanities and Social Sciences, invited esteemed resource persons of various institutes of different countries, different universities, and my esteemed colleagues and participants. This is really indeed a very pleasurable moment for me to address or to speak a few words to this August gathering. First of all, I must thank to my esteemed faculty members of Humanities and Social Sciences, particularly the discipline of social work of Assam Downtown University, for organizing this 3 days national workshop on a very important topic relevant to social sciences. I am very much fortunate to say these few words on this challenging topic. The title of the topic itself is a very challenging, and the theme itself is displayed as challenges, opportunities, and prospects of fieldwork. I believe social science cannot claim to be a science until and unless it adequately uses, it adequately applied the method of fieldwork in the true perspective of its senses. Now, particularly after independence, when social sciences felt a great challenges to study the social reality, problems, and the various issues of our country, social scientists adopted a large number of methods, techniques to study the social problems, realities, and the issues of emerging Indian society. And that is why we find a new academic venture that is what we want to call the fieldwork methodology. Fieldwork methodology itself is a scientific adventure. Sociology, psychology, social work, and as well as various other sister disciplines of social sciences have adopted the methods and techniques to study social reality vigorously as far as possible. That is why in the discipline of social sciences, we find this specific academic adventure, that is fieldwork. Going to fieldwork, meeting the people, institutions, individuals, meeting with the social problems, pursuing after the social problems have become a still challenging task. That is why I want to just submit my humble sayings that field work itself is a great adventure. And this to overcome this adventure, social scientists have adopted a large number of techniques, tools, and with some basic philosophical and theoretical background. Fieldwork becomes a problem because it involves both theory, concepts, ideas, and method. And that is why it becomes an academic venture. It is not simply a mere fieldwork, going to the people and meeting the people. It becomes an academic venture, intellectual venture based on experience, truth, reality, and the various issues daily faced by social scientists. Therefore, at the very beginning of the establishment of social sciences as scientific discipline, we get a specific academic venture that is called fieldwork methodology. I believe the social adventurers and the scientists, those who are dealing with social problems and realities, had adopted and used this kind of existing methodologies in a very fruitful manner in their day-to-day study. I again repeat my sentence saying that fieldwork itself is a great, adventurous, and difficult job. In this particular moment of social situations all over the world, particularly in the period of pandemic development, pandemic situations, it is becoming more adverse task. It is becoming more difficult job. But yet, social scientists are never remaining backward to solve the issues of social realities and social problems. With the help of existing tools and methods, techniques of technology, and emerging outcome of modern researches, and with the help of great theoretical and conceptual background, social scientists, particularly in the field of social work discipline, they have adopted a very praiseworthy techniques to study social reality and social problems. And therefore, keeping in view of all these issues, the theme of present 3 days national level workshop entitled Challenges, Opportunities, and Prospects of Fieldwork Practices in Social Work during and post-COVID scenario. It is a very challenging task and very challenging activities for the social scientists. It is challenging because first of all, it is an academic venture. Intellectuals begin with their theoretical notions and perceptions, ideas, concepts, and thereby they are using the existing methodologies in the relevant situation wherever it is possible and practicable. Therefore, I believe that the esteemed resource persons to this 3 days workshop, they are from 3 different important institutions of the country. They will deliver a very fruitful, very courageous lecture, I believe, and the participants and the faculty members of social science, humanities and social science will be benefited to a very extent possible. I thank the faculty members of social work discipline in the Humanities and Social Science of Assam Downtown Universities for organizing this workshop with a very challenging aptitudes in mind. And I believe our young researchers and young faculty staffs and students will be greatly benefited through the deliberations of this 3 days workshop. I thank you again for giving me this opportunity to speak just to display a few words. And I again welcome all the participants and resource persons and faculty members, particularly our Honorable VC Sir, to spend his busiest time to be with us for this very auspicious moment. Thank you very much once again. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think I'm audible. Okay. Respected Professor C.K. Gogoi, Dean, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, the Associate Dean, the faculties, other faculty members of the program, and very eminent speaker of this 3 days workshop, Dr. Kabalati Desai, Professor C. Devandran, Dr. Soma. Let me at the outset welcome all our esteemed speaker of this 3 days workshop who are from outside. Had it been a real meeting, we would have been able to meet you personally. It would have been very nice. But we, at the outset, besides welcoming you to this meeting, to extend a welcome in future to visit our institute, to our university. It's a beautiful campus located by the side of mighty Brahmaputra. Hope to see you sometime. The very topic, challenge, opportunities, and prospect of fieldwork in post-COVID-19. I don't have formal training in social work education or social science, so it would be rather more useful if I would have been able to spend time and listen to the speaker. But yet I thought I'll just share a few thoughts with you, like the social work. Then it's also kind of altruism, like people help people. And as Gogoi said, the realities of society have changed, and the context of social work have also changed with passing time. And perhaps this is what we are going to discuss in this workshop. COVID-19 has brought a very peculiar situation, and once we are out of this epidemic, devastating epidemic, I would say, how we again gear up the social activities, social work for the welfare of people, basically. And also question is, since this pandemic has compelled us to remain confined to our, or inside our home, or inside a small, when you come to even office, you are not allowed to move out much. So under this situation, we cannot lose sight of the need of social work, because those who required social benefit of social work in society before COVID-19 all required now and will be requiring. But because of this restriction, the benefits have not gone. And it is not only countries like us, developing countries, I would say India still, in my view, is a developing country. or in developed country, this has totally a different dimension of the meaning of practical work or a practice of social service, social work for society. Even before this pandemic started, in Western world, they had mm, quite a bit of, like if you look at last 20, 30 years in Western world, this whole issue of social work had changed tremendously because we are living in a time, technology and machine driven time. Today we buy things through internet, we order material through internet, but Western world started doing it maybe 20 years ago. And face-to-face transaction we are still doing, but Western world lost maybe 50% of their face-to-face transaction. And their society is built in a way that for doing social work, you may not visit the field, meet people face-to-face. But from India, that necessity of visiting people in their real, in the place where they live has not gone, and I think it will not go maybe in next 1 century, no matter how much advancement we make in artificial intelligence or in computer science and this doing business in your digital platform. This will be very much there. I just wanted to draw a example. Like when this COVID-19 started, it was in the month of May. I think it was before I joined this university. I was working in Institute of Advanced Study in Science and Technology. I was heading that institute. And last 3 years, we adapted to village. It's called Bakrapara and Kallapara, about 20 kilometers from ISST Boragao campus, where this it's a tribal village where all the male population, I would say almost all the male population, used to drink all the time, and female members of the family earn livelihood. And we entered into those two villages, and over a period of 3 years' time, I put a person there. He spends his office is there. We rented a small house, and this our one assistant, office assistant, he will spend whole day, kept small books in Assamese of the agriculture, horticulture, small storybook for kids that become kind of a library, or the people, those ladies who were trained to do mushroom cultivation, eri rearing, eri silk, worm rearing. Within 3 years' time, we saw a tremendous change. That was it's not only simple face-to-face contact. I, in fact, installed the office and the person. And what I found that most important requirement in social work is your heart. You really want people to change. Though social work has taken a lot of NGOs have non-government organization has been doing a lot of social work, and it has some ulterior motives also, some of the organization I know. But the true change in social work can come from work, like from within the heart, a real feeling, and then change definitely come. But it's I didn't mean to elaborate on this, but case about COVID-19, May I said to you, there's another village I want to adopt. Name is Sattar Gao. The name pronounced like some English name, Sattargao. It's in the foothills of Garo Hills, and from Rani development block is not very far, about 10 kilometers from the main road. But they don't have any communication, any bus or any mechanical communication. They walk to the main town, about 10 kilometers. There is a small schools up to class 7 students can study, and for other they take bicycle and come to the town and study. When we wanted to go to them because it's lockdown time to take food, and you cannot connect them because they didn't have a tower in that. You cannot connect them. It's a lost world if you go. I visited several times to that place. And when we could contact them by other means, they were not interested to allow us to go there. Why they were not interested? Because they heard that well, if city people come, the disease will be spreaded to them. So then what Dr. Gogoi said, the challenge of social work, you want to help somebody, and but because of misinformation, even they will remain starved maybe, but they will not like to take the disease. So that's the level of complexity social work sometimes. That's a, of course, extreme level. Now, what I'm trying to say that this country, or if you talk about Northeast or Assam, there are still places like this Sattergaon. Maybe some of these villages are located 10 or 15 kilometers away, but still is not connected. They have to walk 15 kilometers from their home towards the town and again go back by walking. And under that situation, and they don't have a tower there where you can meet them through even mobile, forget about having contact on digital platform holding meeting. So then what I'm trying to say, that relevance of social work and continuation, relevance of continuing our practical work in society in terms of removing difficulties that the people in rural areas, particularly in rural areas, face must continue. And I believe those who have do study formally social science, it has extended dimension. Like you need today social help to even school kids. These modern education, the competitive educations, and the pressure of society to on students to do good, or pressure of offices for their employees to excel, to do excellence, that always bring anxiety dimension. And that's why psychology, clinical psychology, coming up as a big way. And I have also seen social workers providing help on these dimensions also. So COVID-19 rather have brought the social disturbances, difficulties in family, struggle, quarrels, more. So the social work practical dimension, it remains very relevant now, and it will continue to remain in future for countries like India or any developing countries of the world. And in that context, the workshop that we're going to get lectures from eminent speakers will pave some, or provide you some tools, some expertise, some practical aspects of help how to continue doing social service, bring justice to your work. And I wish that this workshop benefits our faculty mostly, and all those faculty and students, and all those who will be participating. With these words, I just wish success, and also thank all the distinguished speaker for sparing their time to be part of this workshop. Thank you very much.
Yes, Manimukta, you are audible. Yes, sir, you're audible, sir. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, and I'm there. Thank you, Biju. Okay, fine.
Vijay sir,
Yeah.
Vijay sir, please, could you please make it 5 minutes? Actually, all of have some, 5 minutes is good. Huh?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Oh,
Bijoy, am I audible? Bijoy? 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 Okay, let me know when is my screen visible? Screen is visible now.
Shall we start? Okay. Bijoy, just a couple of clarifications. We Our participants, most of them come from social work background. Okay. Uh, Thank you, Bijoy. I thank the entire organizing team, right from Professor Talukdar at Assam Downtown University to the Dean, Professor Gogoi, and especially the organizing secretary, Bijoy. Now, let me straight away go to the topic. As I was hearing, the former speakers in the inaugural session, Professor Talukdar and Professor Gogoi, and they talked about field work more in the sense of how it is understood as part of research. So let me start by clarifying the difference between fieldwork in social sciences and fieldwork in social work. Okay. Now, fieldwork takes different meanings in social work and in the social science disciplines such as anthropology and sociology or political science. In the social sciences, fieldwork is associated with research primarily. It has predominantly to do with engagement with the field under study for collecting data. In case of qualitative research, we also talk about data collection, analysis, interpretation going simultaneously. So it's more or less the idea of fieldwork in social sciences is associated with the idea of research. Whereas in social work, fieldwork means the on-field training process that the students undergo along with classroom teaching. There are different components of this fieldwork practicum that are continuously supervised and evaluated by evaluated in the bachelor's or master's level social work program. In social work, fieldwork is not simply about understanding different aspects of the society, but to develop and execute intervention strategies for on-field practice. Okay, so there's this primary difference between fieldwork in social work and fieldwork in social science. And now research is part of social work also, but we always distinguish between the fieldwork that we do as part of research and fieldwork in the sense of the on-field training process of our students at bachelor's and master's level. Now, we have, since the onset of this pandemic and then, this whole new medium of webinars has started, we've been talking, we are talking a lot about COVID-19 and a response to COVID-19 and, how, different aspects of education need to be related with uh, how we need to rethink about different aspects of even education with regard to COVID-19. Now, before I my the topic given to me is the fieldwork challenges in social sciences. in the contemporary society. Now, when we talk about fieldwork challenges, I want to first highlight the challenges which continue to exist with regard to fieldwork education in India. And towards the end, I want to pitch it as a discussion about how probably COVID-19 has further, made those challenges, more and more grave and complex. And in addition to that, I will also, we will, some of the possible, I'll just throw some pointers at, what can possibly be thought about in replanning fieldwork in relation with the current COVID-19 pandemic. But first of all, I want to flag the issues related to challenges of fieldwork education in India in the contemporary society. And these are, although we are looking at it in the contemporary society, many of these challenges have continued to exist in field work in with regard to fieldwork training in social work education for many years now. So let's first just look at that, and probably when we are specifically talking about addressing challenges in the COVID-19 pandemic, probably some of the cues will be taken from this session for tomorrow and day after tomorrow's speaker also. So I'll also be keen to hear both both those perspectives because those perspectives are very important in and study tours, which used to be conducted earlier in the department where I am working right now, those are, now for a number of years, due to a lot of limitations, we have not been able to conduct these uh, rural camps and study tours. Now, the idea of skill labs again, skill labs, I don't know how many institutions are offering skill labs. There are very few. So now this is my concern that different institutions, although we always arrive when we look at literature on field work, we look at all these many people have highlighted these components, but no one has been able to come up with a very very uniform criteria of uh, you know okay, which all components are definitely necessary, which all how do we organize all these components together as a uniform pattern of fieldwork across. Now, I would also highlight, but one of the things which one can see throughout every institution and which forms the bedrock of fieldwork education in most institutions in India is the idea of concurrent fieldwork placement. That is, under these concurrent fieldwork placements, students engage uh, with go for fieldwork training besides classroom teaching every week, twice or thrice. Okay, and that's where they directly engage with people and their issues. And this is something which is very common across uh, all institutions of social work. Still, there are few institutions which divulge from this. That, for example, some of the specializations I know of in Tata Institute, they don't look at concurrent fieldwork every week. They look at only block fieldwork placements. Okay, so an elongated fieldwork placement instead of concurrent twice or thrice a week kind of a placement. So, uh, but more or less, there is some form of uniformity with regard to concurrent fieldwork placements, and they are the essence of fieldwork education in most institutions of social work. Now, another concern that I have with regard to the components is the contextual limitations of different institutions. So it also depends. For example, uh, an institution which is located within rural area and where most of the training is happening in rural communities, what kind of rural camp do we envisage? Okay, or let's talk about an institution. Many of our institutions located within Northeast have very minimal funds and are located in remote uh, locations. Now, you have contextual limitations with regard to organizing skill labs there. Okay, even in many of the new institutions of social work, and for that matter, Northeast, for example, is social work is the first institution started in 1997, which is fairly late as compared to social work institutions in other parts of India. In the newer institutions, again, the idea of interagency meets, because first of all, you need to find agencies for placement. Many new institutions struggle to find agencies where students can be placed for fieldwork. So how do we meet the criteria of interagency meets where members of different agencies where students are placed for fieldwork, they come together with students and with the faculties and organize an interagency meet and a kind of exchange of ideas and knowing each other's work. So this is again a contextual limitation for newer institutions, and especially those institutions which are located in remote areas. So these are some of the concerns that I have with regard to the components of fieldwork education, and these are unresolved. Okay, every institution is struggling in their own way. So now, again, I'll flag the issue of COVID here and say, okay, now how do we resolve these existing challenges with regard to, fieldwork components of fieldwork education, uh, especially these two concerns. How do we resolve these two concerns in the situation of COVID-19? Now let's look at concurrent fieldwork placements. As I said, they are the backbone of the entire fieldwork education. Uh, now, when we look at concurrent fieldwork placements, we are looking at two kinds of placements. We are looking at agency placements and we are looking at community placements. Okay. Now, when we look at agency placements, some of the areas that different non-government organizations or government organizations where students are placed for fieldwork, they cover areas such as public health, education, violence against women, children in difficult circumstances, vocational training agencies for generating employment for the youth, then the ideas of SHGs and microfinance, human rights, drug de-addiction, empowerment of differently abled persons, trafficking of women and children, disaster management, and human rights. Yes, like some of them are, these are, the kind of uh, agency placement that we look at when we look at concurrent fieldwork placements. In case of community placements, we are looking at rural and urban. Now, rural is again location or design specific. Like for example, we in Assam University mostly look at rural placement because we are located in located near Silchar town, but mostly the town is surrounded by the distance between the university and the town. There are so many rural communities and villages where our students are going for field work. So our location enables us to have rural community placement. But for, let's say, an institution located in a metropolitan city like Delhi or Bombay, I don't know if in concurrent fieldwork placement any idea of rural placements is possible or not. Then you have urban community placements. So these are the kind of placements that you have with regard to your concurrent fieldwork placements. Now, the most closely knitted idea with concurrent fieldwork placements, especially, is the idea of fieldwork supervision. Now, what are the, when we look at supervision, what is it that a fieldwork supervisor is looking for, while training a student, and what kind of learning even the supervisor wants to draw from the student trainees. Now, one of the central aspects of fieldwork supervision that has been envisaged is, we need to expose students to multiple perspectives on the issues that they are going to engage with. We all know that students have undergone a certain socialization process, and when they've undergone a socialization process, depending on their socialization, they might have a certain perspective about the kind of social issues that they face, that they engage with in the communities where they, when they go for field work. Now we need to expose them to different perspectives one can have about that social issue rather than having their own bias. So that's one important role of a fieldwork supervisor. Then fieldwork supervision also looks at conscious use of theory in practice. Okay, so because we say that it's not about going and doing any kind of social service in social work, we are talking about professional practice, and to train students through field work for professional practice, we need to ensure that there is conscious use of the theory that is taught to them in the classroom in practice. Okay, then also the idea of challenging the theory based on field experience. Okay, so the whole idea of praxis is what I'm talking about. The idea of praxis is happens basically through the idea of field work. Field work, facilitates this process, this idea of praxis in social work. So not only trying to make conscious use of theory that you study in your practice, when you actually go for practice based on that experience, can you challenge the existing assumptions of any theory? So that's also something which is a reflexive part of fieldwork supervision. Then it involves application of our methods, then strengthening the skills, whether it's regarding the counseling skills, the interviewing skills, recording skills. And one of the basic functions of fieldwork supervision is basically motivating the students continuously, because there are numerous when students visit the field, when they don't see concrete outcomes of their interventions. They feel demotivated when they do not get acceptance from a certain section of the people. They feel demotivated. When most importantly, when they encounter a very distressful situation, there is a chance to get dejected and feel demotivated. And therefore motivation is this continuous exercise that fieldwork supervisors, uh, there's something that fieldwork supervisors continue to do as part of uh, the supervision process. Now fieldwork supervision, there are two core components which are involved in the supervision process. One is the individual conferences and the other is the group conferences. The individual conferences facilitate the development of one-to-one relationship between the supervisor and the trainee through a continued feedback process. Now this is one-to-one relationship. Okay. Now it's a different matter when we come to the challenges. That is the main thrust of my topic today. We'll discuss that how much of this is feasible. Then we talk about individual conferences helping the students to share the learning drawn through their fieldwork training. They help the students to express the challenges faced in the fieldwork training. The group conferences are more directed towards increasing the knowledge of the students through mutual sharing of field experiences. They also help in connecting different social phenomena that are experienced by students in different.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, sorry for the interruption. Just one participant, you please stop sharing your screen. Ajingun, stop sharing your screen. People are not able to see the presentation.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, sir. You continue, sir.
Okay. Then GC is helping connecting different social phenomena that are experienced by students in different field situations. So this is these are the two important important mechanisms of fieldwork supervision: individual conferences and group conferences. Now let's come to having just looked at some of the background of fieldwork education. Let's look at the challenges. Now in today's presentation, I have tried to categorize the challenges into four. The first set of challenges that I'm going to talk about is the generic structural issues. Now, these are issues that exist across almost all institutions of social work. If I leave aside some of the oldest ones with more resources, even there they face this issue, but these issues. But in almost all other institutions of social work, you face these structural. There are these general structural issues which are extremely challenging for imparting fieldwork education. The second important challenge that we do witness is the objective subjective dilemma in fieldwork supervision and evaluation. Okay. And third is looking at some of the specific challenges in agency settings, and then finally looking at some of the challenges in community settings. Now, when I will highlight these challenges, in between what I am going to do is I'm going to share some of the reflections of my colleagues, my students on some of these issues, because a while back I did a small research on challenges in fieldwork in my institution in Barak Valley. And therein, I conducted a lot of in-depth interviews and focus group discussions with my colleagues and students. And therein, some of the findings which came out, I felt that these are issues that which are being faced across different social work institutions by educators and students. Okay, so I will be flagging some of the direct quotations in between to just in order to just explain how that issue actually works on the ground, or challenges the student is better on the ground. Now let's talk about the generic structural issues. The first generic structural issue that we face is the overall structure of social work education in India. Now, when we look at the overall structure of social work education in India, predominantly most of the departments of social work are located in the university system. Now, the moment we are located in a university, that's true for Western societies also, or other nations where you have where social work is a much highly recognized profession. But in India, what is the issue that we face with regard to placement within the university system? Now, the moment we are part of university system, there are generic university guidelines for which almost equates us with other social science disciplines, and other social science disciplines lack this component of fieldwork. Okay, this fieldwork practicum, fieldwork instruction, or there are different terminologies used for them. They don't even recognize this. The general guidelines don't recognize the importance of this component, and we in social work always refer to this as the backbone of the entire social work education. Now, if your fieldwork practicum is not, uh, you know, uh, sufficiently recognized, or you are almost placed at par with other social science disciplines, you are a department located within a larger school of social sciences, and you are treated at par with other social science disciplines in terms of both in terms of how the pedagogy of the course is to move on, the number of teaching hours, the number of classes, all of that. You have to follow that common pattern. Now, how do we bring in the idea? How do we field work, which is for us as important as classroom, the whole importance of that gets undermined. That's a general structural challenge that we face. Okay, there's no specific recognition of the fieldwork practicum part when we are located in the larger university system. Okay, now that's one structural issue we face, which undermines our fieldwork component. Then the focus on postgraduate level planning. Now, across India, if we start from 1936 onwards till now, we always see that most of our planning social work education planning has happened at the postgraduate level, at the master's level. There are still, when there are many guesstimates which have come which talk about more than 300 plus institutions of social work in country right now. There are hardly out of that, again, those guesstimates say that around 25 to 30 which offer a bachelor's level training in social work. Okay, so the entire focus of social work education from the start has been largely at the postgraduate level. Okay, now when we have planned the whole program at postgraduate level, what happens is that we are open to taking students from different disciplinary backgrounds at the postgraduate level. Now they come up with a different understanding of social work. So out of the 2 years of your master's program, your 1 year is almost goes in bringing everyone to a common understanding of fieldwork and social work. Okay, so now this and then how much of space are we left with for more intense field-based training within a 2 year program? Okay, so this is again why how come we never planned the whole idea of social work education, especially the fieldwork practicum within social work education, as a 5 year program. This also flags the debate about generic versus specialization with regard to fieldwork and social work. Now, if you look at even if we consider the fewer institutions which are offering BSW, do we offer a specialized training at MSW level where can we find, if even if we are offering specialization at MSW level, how many specialized agencies are we finding, or communities where the student can go and practice the particular specialization? Okay, now this is again this is a larger debate about social work education in itself. But for fieldwork especially, it becomes that if you offer any sort of area-based specialization, how do you find agencies for the same? Okay, now if we do not integrate the specialization with the fieldwork placement, then there are massive issues about the on-field training process, or practicing what is learned in the classroom in the field. Okay, then again, UGC has the general framework across institutions for all the aspects of social work education, and more or less we are trying to follow that general framework. Now the problem with that is certain contextual limitations are unaddressed, and also the fact that again then you will see a kind of an unclear application of that. For example, you will see uh, uh, that what I talked about, the components, that UGC can recommend a set of components, but there's no clarity on how to implement, and each institution based on their limitations apply different permutations and combinations of those fieldwork components, whether you offer skill labs or not, whether you offer rural camps or not, whether you offer a study tour or not, all these, what is going to be your orientation program, are you bringing in context specific things in the orientation program? So when we also, again, the same idea of imposing that general framework, again that general framework is developed by, like, someone might contest me for this, but they are hegemonized by the older and powerful institutions, which fail to address the needs of the newer institutions or institutions located in remote areas. Okay, then looking at the second issue that I want to look at as a generic structural issue that with regard to challenges in for fieldwork education is high supervisor supervisee ratio. Now this is again a problem being faced by many. Now what happens is that if you are not looking at a ratio of 1:4 or 1:6, and you're looking at a ratio of more than that, for example, in my institution we are looking at a ratio of 1:15. Now how do you conduct regular ICs, and how do you do a rigorous evaluation of reports when you have a 1:15 kind of a ratio? Now, if we are looking at ICs as a very important component of supervision, where there is one-to-one dealing between, the student trainee and the supervisor, 15 students, even if we are looking at, a half an hour IC, we are looking at about 7.5 hours in a week. Okay, out of which 2 days are for fieldwork, one is a Sunday. We are looking at 4 days of working. 7.5 hours, and then you have to accommodate 4 hours based on university guidelines. Minimum you need 16 to 20 hours of teaching every week. You're looking at additional more than 4 hours. You're looking at additional 4 hours a day, or 16 hours in a week. You're looking at another 7.5 hours. Is it feasible? Then you're having 2 fieldwork minimum in a week, which means you're looking at evaluating 30 reports. Can you do an in-depth evaluation of 30 reports when you have a student ratio of 1:15? Now, that's a generic structural issue that most social work institutions face. We might have a good faculty strength, but we also are offering BSW, so we have more number of students. So we have to face 1:15. And then uh, uh, in some institutions, the number of faculty members are very less if they are only offering postgraduate level. So again, the faculty student ratio again is higher. Then also higher supervisor supervisee ratio limits the idea of understanding the heterogeneous background of students in depth, so that each supervisee's fieldwork can be planned according to her or his strengths and weaknesses. This is in-depth engagement you can't do because you don't have that kind of time. Again, when you have 15 students, or even if you have 8 students and you have multiple fieldwork settings, how many visits do we as supervisors make or are able to make to the fieldwork settings of the students? Once, twice, thrice a semester. Okay. Now that again a very generic structural issue which impedes, which is an impediment for fieldwork education, which is being faced because of the high supervisor supervisee ratio. Again, another general structural issue which has been witnessed is The gap between curriculum structure and the fieldwork guidelines. Also, curriculum undergoes revision, but fieldwork guidelines don't. This sometimes creates a challenge of relating semester-wise curriculum and pedagogy with fieldwork. Now, we keep on evolving our curriculum and pedagogy, but are we evolving the fieldwork training at the same pace? That's the big question, and it's an issue which is faced. People may deny, but we all also know the reality. Also, the idea of gap between curriculum structure and fieldwork guiding. Now, look at this. Uh, you know, uh, you know, I have come across fieldwork guidelines wherein we expect a student to do casework in the first semester, and casework and group work and committee organization, and the student is taught the idea of community organization is fourth semester. How do you do that? If the student has not been has not discussed theoretically the idea of community organization, is asked to practice in the field, and we say that fieldwork supervision should fill that gap, then again, what is the scope of ICs and GCs? So this is another issue that we see this kind of mismatch between when we are teaching what and when are we expecting the students to do, practice that particular method uh, in the field, during which semester of field work are we expecting. Okay, then different educators teaching different papers and having different areas of interest and expertise. Thus, how to make fieldwork supervision fill this gap in a more holistic way. Okay, so even if if there's someone who is, we say that supervisors must fill in the gap. The supervisors have their own areas of interest and expertise, which might vary, with in-depth knowledge about another particular area, method, or method. Now, if that one can revert back, a supervisor can revert back and say supposed to be done by teachers. All right, that is supposed to be done by teachers. That is supposed to be, you don't expect that to be a part of supervision process. So the blame game will. So this is a general structural issue that we've been facing with regard to fieldwork. Now let's look at, these were the general structural issue. Now look at the objective subjective dilemma in fieldwork supervision and evaluation. Different across uh, the 2 to 5 years is MSW, or if it includes BSW also, then BSW and MSW. You students, undergo supervision from different supervisors. Now, all of these supervisors have different supervisors, different expectations from students, different areas of interest and expertise, different experience, and different ideologies. Now, what happens because of that? So, some supervisors expect more concrete, individualized intervention in the field, such as awareness. Some expect them to understand macro issues in the community. Some focus more on skills, whereas some focus on how to apply in the community. Some expect detailed records, whereas some expect conceptual records. Some focus more on analysis in the report. Some focus more on the work done in the community. Now, there is subjectivity here, and it happens, every year. So, you have a different supervisor. Now it's a 5 year, if it's a 5 year program, you have 5 different supervisors. Now, this kind of subjectivity becomes extremely difficult for students at times. Now, one can also turn around and look at this as a positive, that students get more exposure. They get exposure to different supervisors, so they learn different skills, or they learn different methods in how they can practice the same through different through different approach. How all these can be also treated as advantages, that students get this generic broad based training, but there's no focus there. And what happens is, when you have a lot of subjectivity, it's sometimes, what it does is it creates confusion, okay, in the mind of the student. So that's an important challenge that we need to address, that how do we balance this objective subjective dilemma, that wherein students get a more wider exposure through different viewpoint, but at the same time they are not confused which one to choose or why. They have some clarity about, some objectivity about it as well in their entire 5 year or 2 year training process. Okay. uh, then taken together, all this confuses the students, as semester wise fieldwork guidelines structurally are same for all students, but supervisory styles are different. Okay, so for each semester, if you're in first semester, you're supposed to do XYZ, which is laid in the fieldwork guideline. Now supervisory style is different. Supervisor wants to focus, let's say on a macro issue, whereas the uh, fieldwork guidelines are talking about individual intervention in that semester. Now what happens is, again, there happens to be a conflict, and for the student in this banking model of education that we follow, evaluation becomes a very important criteria, and then it creates so much of anxiety and confusion in the student. Okay, so this is a major challenge, that how do we address this objective subjective dilemma in field of supervision and evaluation is a major challenge that we need to address, okay, in fieldwork. Now let me just give you a quote of a student. This is a direct experience of this confusion. Like one of the students, uh, uh, this is a student's deliberation. You know, the student highlighted that when I practiced casework through structured interviewing sessions with the client in the field, I could not see any concrete outcome of that. Therefore, I decided to be creative and thought that I will have a more informal approach with the client and record her case history like a story. At least that way, the client might be more responsive to me, even if I don't make any intervention vis-a-vis the problem she is facing in her everyday life. At least this way, her problems will come out, and later I can think of some interventions. However, this was discouraged by the supervisor, who wanted the strict professional approach as taught to us in casework classes. I feel both innovative and critical ways of working in the field are not entertained in the strict professional practice of social work methods. Now, imagine the kind of confusion which is going on in the mind. This might not be the intent of the supervisor. This might not be the intent of, might not be the intent of, the teacher who's teaching casework in the class to, uh, you know, uh, to be so rigid about explain it that these are the rigid guidelines of case. So this is the professional approach. But the student is confused, and this this dilemma just keeps on adding one after the other. The same student, if would have faced a different supervisor, might not have had this dilemma. Probably another supervisor could have encouraged this approach. Okay, so it confuses the student in a big way. Then the whole idea of evaluation, fieldwork evaluation. External evaluation, now with the latest guidelines for last few years, we have 70% internal as 30%. Now, look at a student's reflection on this idea of internal and external evaluation. Mostly, it appears that we are evaluated on the basis of concrete interventions that we make in the field, such as doing casework or organizing awareness camps or doing group work with school students. In reality, we know that outcomes of these interventions are hardly effective. This is problematic, as we want to get evaluated on the basis of learning we do from the field. Also, observations of each student are unique. Even this needs to be a strong criterion for evaluation. However, mostly I feel that this does not get reflected in our fieldwork evaluation, especially being critical of the agency is viewed negatively. Now, here, imagine, you know, one can, address these dilemmas and confusions of students when doing an internal evaluation, because you have an elongated contact of a semester with the student. So the student can still address this with the individual supervisors. But what about the external evaluator, those who come for a viva? Now they are not aware of these kind of nuances, and the student is then always trying to think, okay, you know, although I know I'm doing this concrete intervention and there's no outcome, or I'm not getting sufficient learning. I've been repeating this semester after semester, but this is what fetches me marks, at least in the external evaluation. Okay, so the student is, always in that mind, and what this also does is a kind of dissatisfaction or demotivation sets into the student. Where is that? Okay, now another now let's look at some of the challenges in agency setting. The different expectations of agencies and department supervisors. Uh, the agency supervisor has a limitation of a bureaucratic setup, and they want to look at how a student can be uh, uh, taken as a helping hand, and they have other limitations too. Whereas the department supervisor focuses on the more on the professional development of the student, looks at skills, methods, everything in depth. Now there are these different expectations between the agency and the department supervisor. Now, this again is a major challenge, and I feel that this challenge is faced across different institutions, but more in for the newer ones and the ones located in remote area. Then there is lack of trained social workers in agencies. So again, understanding the requirements of the students' development in fieldwork education get undermined because of that. Then there is this idea of professional social work weak in new institutional social work, especially those located in remote areas. This is because in the remote areas and in your institutions, you don't find enough agencies for placements. And wherever, if you are able to convince a government department, let's say, or some local organization, for them, this idea of professional social work is not very well understood. And therefore, the requirements of the students' fieldwork practicum are not that well understood. Okay, because the idea of social work itself is very new in these institutions. So okay, probably one can argue that this challenge can be overcome, as more and more batches come and more students are going to these agencies, and we are finding new agencies. But still, it's a challenge uh, which which needs to be looked at more closely, because the way we set the trend for the initial batches of students is what is going to continue in the long run. Uh, Now let's look at a particular educator, reflection on agency settings. Social work department in Assam University is just 20 years old. Thus, the idea of professional social work and concurrent fieldwork training is still in its infancy in Barak Valley. Many people in the organization where students go for concurrent fieldwork training do not understand the methods of social work practice and their relevance, as they are not trained social workers. Also, the regular contact points through whom they are getting slowly accustomed about professional social work education are students. The students themselves are still under training and are not able to clearly articulate the idea of professional social work and its unique ability to intervene on different issues. Thus, a gap remains between the expectations of the agencies on the one hand and the social work department on the other. Now, this is the dilemma of an educator. Imagine what kind of confusion a student is undergoing. Okay, look at the students' reflection. When I used to take clients from different communities for drug de-addiction process to the agency where I was placed, they used to refuse as the clients did not have the money to pay for the process. I even tried to approach individuals for donations to help these clients financially, but could not generate enough resources as the number of cases were more. Thus, I was under the ethical dilemma as to which case should be given priority. Thus, after a point, I started making efforts in this direction and limited myself to only doing awareness campaigns on drug de-addiction in rural communities, which was expected of me by the agency. After a point, people stopped coming for awareness camps as the critical cases which came forward for undergoing drug de-addiction were not entertained by the agency. People in the communities observed this and also complained that these camps might only be used by the agency to generate their own funds and not helping people who come forward. Now, here one we can say this is the agency's fault. But more than looking at it as an agency's fault, probably there is also a serious dialogue which needs to happen between, the social work department and the agency, and what support can be provided to them. Because agency might have its limitations of resources and therefore they're not taking critical cases. But the point is that you know, how do you look at this in this whole process, the amount of demotivation that student has got. How demotivated has a student got when the students' efforts for making an impact, uh, and what happened to the whole process and the whole demotivation, and because of which, what kind of pushback the training whole fieldwork training process of the student has got would have got, not just in that year but even in the subsequent semesters of fieldwork. Okay, so here it's easy to say that let's do away with that agency, let's not place our students there, but where else do we play in? For example, in our context we already have limited agencies. Okay, now let's look at challenges in community setting. Communities lack basic resources. Expectations of the people are centered on provision of basic resources. Thus, within the limited time frame, students find it difficult to get acceptance of community people. Now, many of the rural villages that our students go for fieldwork placement, we always see that there are not even basic resources, basic drinking water facilities are not there. Now, our students have a limitation that what can they do with regard to that. Okay, they do try to write letters on the complaint letters on their behalf. They do try to go and talk as social work students to the authorities, but even despite these efforts, what we see is that it's not delivered uh, on the ground. And when community people lack such basic resources, and even after students effort those resources and they can't access those, uh, uh, you know slowly they start you know you know they stop expecting get accepting the students. They don't want to talk to them. Many of our students complain of this challenge, like what do we go and do there year after year, semester after semester, when we are going and we are trying to do what we are expected to do through our fieldwork deadlines. And when community people are lacking in basic resources, they are just not ready to accept, and every year we are doing the same, and therefore less and less acceptance of people are now just turning us away from their doors. Okay, now one can always say rapport building is a difficult process, it's a long-term process. Then again, it's a structural limitation that we have. Why to blame the students? Because if we have the limitation of twice a week for a few hours, uh, you know and there are people in extremely distressed situations, they will not accept the kind of solutions that or professional approach that we are going to ask the students to have in the field. Then there are a lot of challenges in dealing with macro issues. This is again due to the limited time frame. Now, the above stated challenges become even more grave in the context of rural communities. And limited field engagement of supervisors is another issue, which is, again, I'm not blaming supervisors and teachers, but this is a challenge, again, a structural challenge. And in community settings, I think so, along with the students, we as supervisors also need a lot more engagement. Uh, let's look at one of the reflections of a student on the challenges in community setting. A major task that we undertake in fieldwork is to organize resources to meet certain basic needs of the community, such as addressing health concerns, education of children, employment opportunities for the youth, etc. As most of the communities we are placed in are living in acute poverty, therefore to generate resources within the community is not feasible. Naturally, we try to mobilize resources from outside. One such source is government welfare schemes such as NRLM, Manrega, ICDS, NHM, etc. But there are huge discrepancies in the data provided by the government and elected representatives at the village level on the one hand, and the responses of actual beneficiaries on the other. When we try to organize people and register protest after conducting awareness camps on provisions of these schemes, we are not successful. These people are daily wage earners and do not have time to engage into such activities and fight for their entitlements. As a result, we feel demoralized as practice of community organization gets limited only to awareness camps. In such a context, we feel that models of community organization and social action are artificial and suited more for urban communities probably. Moreover, individualized methods which we are told to practice, such as casework and group work, seem even more irrelevant as the coping capacity of our prospective clients seems to be negligible. This is again, look at the challenge that the student is facing. Uh, Now let me come to the whole idea of COVID. Now, you might say that the today's session was entirely based on probably it was based on uh, the fieldwork challenges which exist uh, already. But what about COVID? I would here say that the idea is to see that how this pandemic has further made exacerbated those existing challenges, because those challenges still exist now in this kind of pandemic situation. How these become even more complex, that is the reason why, because suddenly focusing on COVID and forgetting the challenges that we are already facing, I felt there are gaps. But now let me come to this whole idea of fieldwork education and COVID-19. What are the challenges? Now, the biggest challenge that we see is addressing major issues divided at all levels: institutions, students, agencies, and community people. At least for I can vouch for many of us in the Northeast. This digital divide is extreme. Uh, it exists at all levels, institutional level. Okay, we are not going to the institutions. So, what digital resource, can the institution provide to us? Look at the students living in remote areas, no network issues. There's so many network issues. How can we agencies are having this, facing this, community people even more. Now one can say this is a digital divide across even for theory classes. This is a digital divide. This kind of an issue we are going to face. So what I am saying is, uh, it the whole idea is more grave for fieldwork, because here we need one-to-one interaction. We need to meet people. We need that experiential knowledge, which is slowly getting converted to theoretical knowledge. The pandemic has exacerbated the problems of the community people, but the scope of fieldwork response as well as social work intervention has shrunk. Because of the pandemic, the problems of community people have become even more grave. But and they are facing newer issues. Our students earlier used to, through fieldwork, get exposure to the limited health facilities available at the, forget the village level, even at the block level, or in urban areas, the privatization of healthcare facilities. Students were trying to deal with this whole idea of private and public health. And now imagine this pandemic has taken this whole idea of meeting health needs of people to a totally new level. But because this whole pandemic has forced us into isolation and social distancing and whatnot, what is happening is that our responses are shrinking. There might be some of our students who at the personal capacity would be going out and trying to reach out to the people and see what they can do. For example, the issue of migrants was all in front of us. Many civil society people, including our social work students, professionals, practitioners, teachers, all of us have made our efforts. But as in the institutional response and of social work, professional social work, it has shrunk. It has totally. Who's going in? Where? As an institution, where are we even exchanging our ideas? Okay, where is this whole professional social work body? Is it limited to webinars? So, and the backbone of, in any case, the backbone of entire professional social work, I say, is the field work practical, because that's where we always keep up with the contemporary social realities. We know more about them. We can, we try to offer our intervention strategies. It is through fieldwork practicum that we get a further through the experience of students, we get a further in-depth idea about the issues, and then probably an institution launches a field action project. So, this whole space has shrunk, whereas the problems of the people have got more and more complex, have expanded because of the pandemic. So that's a major challenge. Now, fieldwork patterns during COVID-19 are looking at alternatives to simply fit the requirements for a social work degree. There's again a challenge that I see, that, what can we count as fieldwork now? Students in the last semester did about 10 visits, and then there was the pandemic. So क्या हम alternative छोटा मोटा mechanism, let's make them write reports on principles of social work, let them make them write a report on how the pandemic has affected their family and then their neighborhood, and let's look at that idea and see, say if we can treat this as equivalent to their fieldwork requirements. The whole focus as COVID-19 has led to that fieldwork practicum, which was all about this training and on-field experience, and this has suddenly kind of vanished, and we are just, this pandemic has forced us to look at how some little alternative mechanisms we offer, and count them in as fieldwork, and accordingly evaluate them on fieldwork and award the degree. Now, it's uh, it's a gloomy situation, I would say personally. So these are the kind of challenges, and I'm just flagging. I know I'm been talking a lot, very, because I have to talk. I had to talk challenges. I'm talking the difficult picture. Probably tomorrow, day after, when we talk about opportunities and how to overcome challenges and looking at alternatives, we'll be more encouraged and we'll feel more optimistic. But uh, idea is not to demotivate here. The idea is, let's flag all this, let's discuss at least, and if we do that, probably we will start making some noble efforts. Uh, on my side, uh, as of now, to address these challenges, we need to come together on a common platform. Let's say online. This is one such platform, but I'm saying where all of us can come together, like at least representatives from different regions, different institutions, different organizations, different including representatives from the students from different institutions. If there's a need to come together and discuss how the pandemic has further exacerbated existing fieldwork education challenges, the challenges that I highlighted earlier. वो कितना और बढ़ गया है, how much of that has increased. Then discuss whether to adapt fieldwork instructions to address COVID-19 or to treat this situation as a new dimension of existing fieldwork instructions. Okay, कि हमारे जो existing framework है, existing methods that we have, should be kind of COVID-19, we fuse that with COVID-19 and see the fieldwork training requirements of the students are met, or we just treat COVID-19 as another dimension of fieldwork. Okay, another issue of fieldwork, and it's not as if that that's the only issue that we're going to address. There are other issues which are there. So do we treat as COVID-19 as the base and just mix everything with that, or we treat COVID-19 as another separate newly evolved issue which has put forth this idea of, we always knew about social workers interventions with regard to public health, but this pandemic has totally elevated that to another level. Students intervening in with regard to pandemics, this is something new that we are facing. We know there have been pandemics in the past, but for last, at least I would say 20 odd years, addressing a pandemic like this, 20, 30 years, at least by social workers, this is a completely new arena which has opened. So it is going to be, we have to discuss whether we discuss this as a new arena, or we have to have COVID-19 as the overarching, and we have to fuse our fieldwork instructions, training requirements, and other issues within this. That's that's another issue. That's another major issue that we need to discuss and resolve within the social work fraternity. Then we need to discuss the scope of acceptable fieldwork standards in the new normal situation, at least for the time being. These shall include supervision and evaluation, as well as along with online or direct field engagement. And if we can see possibility of initiating field action projects, because institutionally that's one response which gains people's acceptance, which gains authorities acceptance, and also the fact that when we are talking about engaging students in on-field training, field action projects at least can ensure some form of safety of the student, because they are being totally coordinated by the departments or institutions, the schools of social work. So, can we initiate some field action projects for responding to COVID, or other issues that COVID has suddenly put forth, highlighted, like migration, etc. Can we launch some field action projects as institutions of social work? So, if we do that, I see that as the possibility of doing that as one of the solutions to addressing the challenges. Thank you. This is from my side. What I would say is that there are, when I discussed the challenges earlier on, I have actually, tried to look at how we can address those challenges, not in a COVID situation, but otherwise, what are the ways forward to address those challenges? So if you want, I can share those with all of you. Or if you want, we can start with questions. And, and then if in the questions I see some of that getting highlighted, then I'll just, open that part of the presentation also. So it's up to the moderator or the organizer. Bijoy?
Yeah, yes, sir.
So which way do you want it? Should we start with the discussion, questions, and whatever I, in my limited capacity, how I can address those questions? Should we discuss that, or should we look at, I give some of these, possible solutions to address those challenges in a non-COVID situation, but that is, those ideas are in a non-COVID situation.
Okay.
So you want me to give those ideas also alternatives, or you want that let's do a question answer? If during the question answer I see some questions which are coming towards that, then I'll just flag that presentation also and show some of the ideas of how to resolve the objective subjective dilemma, or how to resolve the structural issues. But because my topic is challenges, I wanted that I stick to the challenges, and probably the esteemed speakers tomorrow and day after, they might also be talking about those. I don't want to intrude into their topic, basically.
Yes, sir, absolutely. That would be fine. Like, if we go with some question answering session from the
So
participants.
let's do one
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Let's look at question answers, questions, and then we see if I I see if I can address those. I will, if I need to start another presentation on addressing the challenges, I can.
Yes, yes, yes. Participant, you can share your questions, queries in the chat box so that we can you know, have a good discussion, fruitful discussion on the presentation. Sir has nicely captured and pointed out all the issues that we are facing in this practice setting in our in the community, from the individual to the community and the society level, and even also the organizational level. So I hope definitely you will be having queries. So please leave questions in the chat box.
Okay. Fieldwork assessment. There's one question on. Now, poll 990, is this question about during COVID or in general addressing the challenges of fieldwork assessment? Okay. Now, during COVID, as I said, it's a limited, it's a simple, limited kind of I'm getting some disturbance.
Sure.
Some disturbance. Someone
Is
mic
it
is
okay
on.
now, sir?
Yeah.
Is it okay now, sir?
So, yeah. Now, for fieldwork assessment during COVID, the only possibility is a theoretical assessment. Ironically, that's the only possibility that we look at some of the assignments that we have given to them during the week, and we try and see how they are, how well have they attempted, and those relation to, let's say, components, principles, etc. of fieldwork or application of method. Besides that, for assessment, one thing that we can look that if they can create some imaginary narratives about how to address what are the issues that they are able to flag because of the pandemic, and imaginary solutions, and see how much of how much foresight or grasp of uh, instructions or methods and principles, etc., they are having in creating that imaginary solution. That's the only way to assess as of now. Okay.
Okay, sir. Another question is there.
Yeah. Mr. Pratim Sharma's question is there. During COVID-19, how do they fulfill internship without going to field? Through some of the though some of the organizations start online internship, but students of remote area couldn't attend online internship. True. That's why the only alternative that we looked at in the last semester, we are still trying to innovate in this semester, but last semester is the basically what was tried was trying and this semester also we are doing some mostly that only is uh, we are trying to organize practitioners, okay, and bring them on the have this kind of online sessions where practitioners come and who have, even during the COVID time, like for example, there's a practitioner working with denotified tribes. Those people have kind of still been on the ground and working with people from denotified tribes, for example, and during how COVID has impacted them and how they have responded to that. They have come up with reports on that. So getting these practitioners to have sessions with students is one solution. Okay. And then students should write the reports on that, their learnings from that session. Okay. Another is this online thing. You are very correct. We also come from remote areas, so you're very correct about this online thing. There's a digital divide. Many people started to talk about some organizations who who are working on mental health has become a major issue during the COVID time, and if students can be engaged for counseling, etc. I am skeptical. One, because of the digital divide. Two, counseling is an extremely specialized service, and without continuous supervision where students and teachers have students and supervisors have that IC kind of regular online. I don't know how much of that will work for that, but students, I feel at this stage, counseling sessions in an online mode, um, at max masters final semester students, that too those who are specializing in that, I would discourage, because it might end up doing harm. Okay, so one thing is getting practitioners online with the students. The other is some theoretical assignments related to fieldwork, and the third that we are thinking of is that keeping COVID at the center, and right from family to neighborhood to immediate communities, the impact of COVID and how students can relate with macro frameworks in the society. That's the kind of, relating the issue of of a housemaid to, the macro issues. These are the kind of assignments that we are looking at for online, as uh, doing as part of fulfilling their fieldwork requirement. But again, here I would like to point out, Dr. Partha, is the fact that, I feel that, we can discuss during this webinar, but I think representatives of students from different institutions, at, let's say, first at, state levels, then zonal levels, and then at central levels, this level of meeting should be initiated online, and these exact issues should be discussed. Some consensus arrived at state level, which then presents it to the zonal level, and then at zonal level we have a discussion, and then we flag it at the central level. If something of that, this kind of a mechanism where we all unite under the social work umbrella and think of this in a common way, uh, then we can have a holistic solution. But otherwise, we'll have this subjective solution that we are discussing. Okay. Can you mention the names of that is offering online fieldwork? I am in Barak Valley. I am not aware now. I what I can do is I can look at some of the organizations. I can contact uh, some of the people I know in, let's say, Delhi or Bombay, and see if they are offering any. Some of the organizations there are offering any online internship or fieldwork opportunities. Uh, I will let you know. But this one I can definitely suggest names for, calling practitioners online, wherein they can come and discuss how they've responded to the pandemic with regard to the situation, the population that they deal with. For example, I gave the example of Denotify. I know of a practitioner there. They've come up with 4 reports on the impact of COVID on the denotified tribes in Bengal. And what they've done is that they have also come up with what kind of interventions are required. So if such a practitioner is called on a platform, uh, and with the students, and then that practitioner can also be asked to highlight if, within on the issue of denotified tribes, which organize, if this is the kind of intervention you're looking for, what roles can students play, and, what network can be initiated with those organizations for offering uh, online fieldwork opportunities to students. Uh, since we experienced this time limit during our fieldwork towards the end, we rushed to just meeting our deadline instead of actually adhering to the principles. True. Could our fieldwork curriculum be flexible and allow the students to carry on their work to completion in the following, or have the following batch carry forward the issue that has been taken up? This is so for CO practices. Again, Mr. Anurag Anugrah Pandi.
Hello, hello. So is it? Hello.
Vijay sir, you are audible.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I got disconnected. Sorry, I'm extremely sorry. I lost my network connection.
Okay, sir. No issue, no issue, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot see the questions, Bijoy.
Is it now okay, sir?
Yeah. So
Okay.
can I see the questions? The chat box is gone when
Okay,
I've
okay, sir.
relogged.
Sir, Mohan. Sir, question is there. Is it visible?
Hmm.
The chat box is visible?
Can you ask the person to, because once I've rejoined, my chat box
Yeah.
is empty.
Okay, okay.
Either you just say the question or
Okay, okay,
uh,
sir. I will say. It's Anurag Pandey. Question from Anurag Pandey. He said, since we experience these time limitations during our field work, and towards the end, we rush to just meeting our deadlines instead of actually adhering to the principles. Could
hmm.
our fieldwork curriculum be flexible enough to allow the students to carry on their work to completion in the following semester, or have the following batch carry forward the issue that has been taken up? This especially so for CEO practices, community organization practices, right?
See, I was trying to respond to this question only, and I was saying that uh, definitely what you are suggesting with regard to the the first part of the suggestion I don't think is feasible, but the second part is that if this can be flagged to the next placement of students, that's a feasible solution, and I think so the institution to which you belong should allow that in a situation like that.
Okay, fine, sir. So, sir, we will take last one query from the participant, and then we will
Okay.
going to the end of this session. So, it's just a minute. Okay, it's a remarking from it's from I'm collecting from the YouTube live chat. So it's
Hmm.
mentioned that in my community the social issues of alcoholism, social issues is alcoholism, but during this COVID-19, the people do not want to attend any program. So what can we do in this process? It's,
See, if people are unwilling to and we can't go to the field, how do we address it? Either we as individuals, see, right now the institutions are also under tremendous pressure not to take the risk that we ask the students to go and know you conduct. At an institutional level, we are also under tremendous pressure because of the spread of the pandemic. But if at an individual level, if you want to conduct, see, if you're not getting community acceptance during this time, it's fairly understood why. Either you keep on pursuing and convincing people, uh, otherwise you have to understand that at currently getting that kind of acceptance and support from people for a program on alcoholism, I you know I don't think that it's going to happen. But still, it's up to your individual kind of motivation to do that, and still see if you can convince. Then you just go ahead. If you That's your individual call. At an institutional level, there's no solution to it as part of fieldwork education.
okay, sir. So I hope that our esteemed participant has got very informative, and I believe this is an also an experience in this excellent session from your end. And one feedback, many of the participants has shared their feedback, like giving they felt this is very much important and relevant. And yes, of course, because in this during our COVID situation, sir has also highlighted all the issues related to the social work, that is uh, field work, and there is challenges in the field that we social work trainees or even the educators are facing from the beginning, even also during this COVID situation. And more will be highlighting in tomorrow's session also by Professor Devandiran sir. And sir, one feedback from Devandiran sir has given that very good presentation and flagging the realities in terms of challenges in field work education based on this current scenario with reflections at different levels, students, educators.
Yeah, thank you
So,
so much, Vijay.
okay,
And
sir. Yeah, I would like to request our my colleague, Mr. Rajgun Handik, to propose a vote of thanks. Sir, over to you.
Okay. Am I audible? Hello. Am I audible? Honorable Resource Person Dr. Kavyalya Desai, respected Dean Sir Dr. Chandrakanta Gogol Sir, Associate Dean Sir Dr. M.K. Day, our Organizing Secretary Dr. Vijay Das, my dear colleagues, and our most valued participants. It is my proud privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of Social Work Program, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, Assam Downtown University, and the entire organizing committee, and the Fraternity of Humanities and Social Sciences, and on my own behalf, extend a hearty vote of thanks to all the dignitaries, to all the participants for their gracious presence in this occasion. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our Honorable Resource Person, Sir, Dr. Kavyalya Desai, for his encouraging words. I would also like to thank our Dean, Sir, Professor Dr. Chandrakanta Gogoi, Sir, for his humble presence and enormous guidance in organization of this event. I would also like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Mrinal Kanti Dev sir for his constant support. I would also like to thank Dr. Vijay Das sir, who have been a driving force behind this workshop. Once again, I want to state that we are grateful to all the dignitaries, faculty members, students for joining us in this platform. I thank you for all being with us throughout this day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, all the organizers. Thank you, participants. And I hope, the couple of hours that we spent together and whatever I spoke about was of some help, or at least it wasn't a waste of time for any one of you. Uh, so I hope, and I also look forward to listening to the other resource persons tomorrow and day after, and see if and at least I was thinking when we have the third session day after, then we can have a holistic kind of a discussion with all the participants, and who can as organizers, I would suggest, Bijoy, that
Yeah.
why don't you come up with the final discussion that we have. You just prepare a kind of a report on that this is was the webinar, and this is the kind of discussion that we came up with. These were the kind of queries of students, and these were the kind of discussion and debates that happened. And then just write it to mail this report to different social work institutions and seek the response on it, so that
Exactly.
we can have an overall there's some the others also start deliberating on this important issue basically, and give us some idea also.
Yes, sir, definitely. It's an excellent idea, sir, and I will work on it.
Okay, Vijay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your valuable time. Thank you. Okay, thank you all the participants. We will be joining again tomorrow at sharp 11 a.m. So all are requested to be joined at that time. Thank you so much.